In this episode, the number one thing I want you to get from this is how to simplify all of these things that are going to make you the healthiest version of yourself, specifically nutrition, fitness, and sleep. If you can get those three things figured out, those are the foundations of you being at the healthiest place in your life. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Most of the people I work with are over 40. So if you're over 40, definitely stick around because these things become even more important as we get older than when we're a little bit younger. When we're younger, we can get away with a lot more indiscretion. As we get older, it's a little bit tougher. And here's what prompted me to do this particular episode. This one's a little bit special because normally I'll just ask AI to give me 3 topics that are being debated right now on the internet. And I was listening to a podcast, and this gentleman was saying that he's trying to be the healthiest version of himself, but he's very confused with all of the information that's out there. And he's listening to the right people, meaning he's listening to really intelligent folks like Dr. Huberman. He's listening to Dr. Peter Attia. He's listening to Gary Brecka. He's listening to Dr. Rhonda Patrick, David Sinclair. Like there's a lot of these people who are disseminating a lot of really good information based around a lot of research. But the problem with most of these folks is that, and this is what the guy on the podcast was saying, is that they deliver a lot of really good information, but a lot of it is conflicting. So when you listen to Attia, he's going to give something different than Dr. Huberman. When Dr. Huberman gives you something, it's going to be different than Gary Brecka. Everyone has a little different kind of idea on this whole thing. And this used to make me insane. So when I'm listening to this guy on this podcast who wants to be healthy, and listening to his frustrations, I completely understand because I've been there. Even to this day, I sometimes get a little bit frustrated. But nowadays I get more frustrated because I feel bad for you if you really want to do the right thing, but you just don't know what that is, right? So let me kind of share with you what I did and what I think might be the best option for you. Again, going back to what are the 3 foundations, right? I think we can all agree, and it doesn't matter who the expert is, nutrition, fitness, and sleep are at the foundations, right? So we need to get those right. We all agree on that, but what are the nuts and bolts of these things? Like, what do we actually have to do? So let's start first with nutrition. Well, with nutrition, if you want to opt out of all of the chaos around nutrition, you have to install a certain belief in your mind, okay? Because no matter what you do, whether you believe in all of the science, and let's be very clear that the science is not definitive around what the perfect nutritional protocol is for you or me or anyone else on this planet, and that's why you hear different things from different experts, right? So science is not clear, because if it was, then we would all be doing the exact same thing, right? So if you want to put your belief in something besides science, and I know that sounds strange, but bear with me here, we want to put our belief in Mother Nature. Okay, so a long time ago, I wanted to get myself out of that science kind of mindset because it was taking me all over the place, right? Do I do keto? Do I do carbs? Do I do milk? Do I do dairy? Like, do I do meat? Do I do vegetarian? Right? Like it's mind-numbing when you try to follow the science. So let's instead put our belief in something that has sustained human beings for millennia. And that is, let's eat real food. And what does real food mean? Let's be very specific with this, because again, I don't want to be vague here, right? If I'm vague, it again just creates more confusion. So when we're talking about real food, there are 5 categories: meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, and fruit. And let me say it again: meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, and fruit. Now, if you can wrap your head around this belief that Mother Nature is going to provide you the healthiest version of yourself, right, that doesn't carry a bunch of excess body fat, that doesn't have a bunch of different health conditions that need to be managed by the medical care community, right, this is what you need to, these are the categories that I want you to pull from. And now, with that being said, you don't have to be perfect to those categories, right? So you don't have to only eat meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, and fruit, but you do need to eat the majority of your foods from those categories. And I'm going to give you a percentage. I'm going to say 80% of the things that go into your face on a day-to-day basis need to come from one or more of those categories. Now, you might be thinking, well, what kind of meat? Is fat bad? Is fat good? Should I be lean? Should I be lean protein? Should it be chicken? Should it be beef? Should it be lamb? Should it be salmon? And the answer is, I don't know for sure, I'm not 100% clear on that because science hasn't told us what the best thing is. But what I do know is that if you eat from a variety of those different things, meat, beef, chicken, fish, all those things, eat from a variety, you're going to get all kinds of different nutritional benefits from those things. So you don't have to rely on just one. I want you to eat from all different areas and find things that you really enjoy. And then the other thing is don't be afraid of fat. We've been told for years and years and years by science that fat is bad. But now science is showing us that maybe fat isn't bad. So again, it's mind-numbing and it becomes really annoying. So don't be afraid of it because it shows up in the real world. It shows up in Mother Nature, right? Mother Nature puts fat in animals probably for a reason, again, is my hypothesis, and it's to make you a more healthy version of yourself. Now, just to give you some context here, I've been eating meat, a high-fat diet for decades. So it's almost been 20 years now. I eat a ton of ground beef. I eat a lot of ham. I eat a lot of pork. I eat a lot of chicken in the fatty kind, not just chicken breasts, because quite honestly, I think chicken breast tastes like cardboard. I'll eat it once in a while, but I eat from a wide variety of different foods and I'm never afraid of fat. So I don't want you to be afraid of fat either. So there's meat, right? Keep it simple. But it's specific enough where if you just pull from those meat categories, you're going to be in a much better place than you are likely right now. Okay. Now, the next thing, let's talk about vegetables. What kind of vegetable? It doesn't matter. Should it be raw or cooked? It doesn't matter. Eat what you like and pull from a variety of different places. There's not one that's better than other. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as a superfood, right? There's just this, the superfoods are the ones that are given to you by Mother Nature, right? So eat from a variety of different vegetable groups, right? And the same thing goes for nuts. The same thing goes for seeds. The same thing goes for fruit. Eat from different varieties of those areas and combine them into as many different meals as you want or as you need to. For me, I tend to keep things fairly simple. I don't eat a huge variety of foods. I try to vary things as much as I can, but I do tend to kind of rely on some of the same things over and over again. And I find that it works very, very well for me. So again, you don't have to be overwhelmed with it. Find things that you like. Try to do variety when you can, and you don't need to be perfect. Again, you don't need to be perfect, okay? So meat, veggie, nuts, seeds, and fruit, 80% of the time. If you want to have a beer once in a while, go ahead and do that, right? We're talking about the long game here, so I wouldn't worry about a few indiscretions here and there. 80% to the prescription, meat, veggie, nuts, seeds, and fruit is going to get you in a really good place. And I can't tell you how many people I've done this with and how much success people have had over the years. I've been doing this for years and years and years with just your average regular folks who want to lose 20 pounds all the way to elite level athletes. It just works, okay? All right, now let's talk about fitness. So with fitness, I think this is the one, to me, this is the biggest black box, right? Because everybody says you should be stronger, you should be fitter. Like we all kind of nod our heads and we understand that that's super important. But what does the best fitness program look like? Like what are the specific exercises that you should be doing if you want to be a fit person? Right. And that's where, again, there's so much uncertainty. Like Gary Brecka is going to give you a different version of his fitness program than Peter Attia. Right. So again, it becomes really confusing. And I think what we need to do is we need to take a look at in the real world, when we're playing what I call the sport of life, right? The sport of life is basically, I'm 49. It's what I'm doing right now. I'm not playing any specific sport, but I want my body to be prepared for whatever it is that I'm going to be doing, whether it's yard work, it could be digging holes where I'm planting bushes, could be moving mulch, could be then I'm going to go do some sort of a recreational activity, like I'm going to play tennis, I'm going to go maybe skiing. Like there's a million different things that I love to do, and I want my body to be prepared for all of those things. Okay, so when we kind of break this down, what does that look like? Now, there's 3 components of fitness that need to be addressed. So for someone to be real world fit, you need a combination of strength, right? And strength, let's define that, is just your ability to move heavy objects, and they're external objects, right? So to be able to pick stuff up, like if I'm using a shovel, I have to be able to pick up the dirt and throw the dirt, right? So we have to be strong, okay? That's number 1. Number 2 is we need to be powerful. Now, powerful is a combination of strength and speed, right? Because there's a lot of, like if you think of a power lifter, someone who competes in like a bench press or a deadlift or a back squat, right? They become very, very strong, but most of those movements are very, very slow. In everyday life, sometimes we need to move very, very quickly, right? So we don't want to just train strength just to be really, really strong. We also want to train power, right? Because I not only want you strong, I want you to be fast. We want both of those things. And that's where power comes in. Power is a combination of strength and speed. Okay. And now third thing is we need some cardiorespiratory endurance, right? So cardiorespiratory endurance just means that if you're going to go out and you're going to do some form of work, right? If you're going to elevate your respirations and your heart rate, again, whether it's doing yard work or you're out on the mountain and you're skiing, you want to be able to sustain your work efforts for long durations of time without gassing out, right? Somebody who's very cardiovascularly unfit is going to gas out very quick, right? You go to the ski hill, you go down a few runs and your buddy is like, look, I got to take a break because I'm tired, right? So you want to be cardiovascularly fit enough to be able to go out and do things for long periods of time, right? So when it comes to cardio, what are the most applicable things for everyday life? Because this is the one that kind of, it becomes a little bit more complicated, right? Because there's many different ways to elevate your heart rate and respirations, right? We could do biking, we could do running, we could get on an elliptical machine, we could get on a bike, we could get on a recumbent bike, we could get on one of those arm ergometer things, right? Like there's a bazillion different ways to do cardiorespiratory training. So I want to know, like, what are the things that are going to lend itself really, really well to everyday life? And if we're training for the sport of life, there are two things I think that are going to be most beneficial. Number one is going to be moving from point A to point B under your own weight. So let's say walking/running. The fitter you become, the faster you're going to be able to cover distance. So ultimately, I would want you to be able to run some distance, right? To cover some distance using your legs, using your body weight, not having to use a bike or anything else, like no machines, like your body is the machine, right? I think that carries over really, really well. So I believe running is super important. Now, do you have to just limit yourself to running? No, but I think if you're training for the sport of life, you want to lean in on something like that for a large majority of your training, okay, on the cardiovascular front. Now, what's another thing? The second thing that I like is the burpee. Now, let me explain. So before you roll your eyes, right, when we're training for everyday life, one of the things that tends to happen as we get older, now I'm 49, is you become a falling hazard. Right? And if you fall down, you need to be able to get yourself back up off the floor. Now, look, if you're in your 40s and you're kind of rolling your eyes like, well, I can do burpees, no problem. Like I can get on the floor and stand back up easily. Try doing 30 of those things 4 times. See how long it takes you to do 30 burpees, right? You'll be doing 2 things. Number one, you'll be drastically challenging your cardiorespiratory system if you're pushing yourself to get them done as fast as possible. The second thing is that you're training yourself to be really, really resilient, right? If you fall on the floor, and this, like I take this to even levels beyond just physical. If you fall down, what do you need to do? You need to get yourself back up. Right? And that goes for everything in life. Whatever it is you're doing, you need to be able to get yourself back up. So I feel like the burpee is not just physical. It's a great way to challenge your cardiorespiratory conditioning based on how many repetitions you're doing and how fast you're going. But it also teaches you just some life lessons. Get 30, get 50 in at a time. And let me tell you, you're going to want to quit, but you're going to get, your conditioning level is going to go up dramatically and your ability to get down and up is going to be just so much higher, right? So somebody that's in great shape and someone that is very cardiovascular fit will be able to do 30 to 50 literally in a row without stopping. Okay. So there are 2 things that I think are going to lend themselves very, very well on the cardiovascular front, right? Learn how to do burpees for periods of time, and then also learn how to move your body from point A to point B, generally running. Now, again, you don't have to just focus on those 2 things. You can expand out from there as well, but as sort of your core training, like use that as your fundamentals. Okay. So let's back this up again and let's talk about these 3 things. We've got strength, we've got power, and then we've got endurance, right? Or cardiorespiratory endurance. Now let's go back to strength. So what are the things that we need to do when we train from a strength standpoint? Now, what I've done is I've taken a look at like who are the strongest people in the world, right? Who are who can move the most amount of weight, right, out of anybody else in the world, right? Because if we measure strength as your ability, your body's ability to move heavy shit, right? The strongest people in the world are generally the power lifters. Okay, the power lifters, what is the tool that a power lifter uses, right? And it's a barbell. And you can see in my gym, I've got barbells here, right? And why is it that they use the barbell? Because in order to deadlift, and deadlift is where the bar is resting on the floor with some weights on it. In order to deadlift, and the world record is something like 1,200 pounds. I mean, it's insane, right? In order to deadlift those kinds of weights, you need a precision instrument, right? And the barbell is that precision instrument that's going to allow you to develop that kind of strength where you can move the heaviest of weights. There is no other tool, there is no other human being that can lift 1,200 pounds without a barbell. Like if it was a concrete ball, if it was a sandbag, if it was a kettlebell, there is nothing else that you could use besides a barbell. The barbell is the precision instrument for developing full body strength for a human being, right? It's just, and we can break it down into physics, which I'm not going to do, but that's why the strongest people in the world use a barbell. And now if we take this into power is the combination of strength and speed. Who are the most powerful athletes in the world? It's the weightlifters. And if you ever watch the Olympics and you see these guys and these girls lifting these incredible weights, right? There's two contested lifts called the clean and jerk and the snatch. Those are high power movements. They incorporate strength and speed, right? And when you combine those two things together, you can move large loads, long distances, and quickly. That is power. And again, what is the tool? It's the barbell. So if you master the barbell, if you understand how to use it and the exercises that you need to do with that barbell, you can become extremely strong, extremely powerful, and then you add in some conditioning that includes running and doing some burpees, you can become one of the fittest human beings on this planet. You can be the strongest, most powerful with great endurance. Will you be the best in the world? Probably not, because you're sort of spreading yourself out. But we're training for the sport of life here. We're not training to be the strongest. We're not training to be the marathon champion of the world. We're training for everyday life. So you want all three of those things to level up. And now if you're thinking, well, what about flexibility and coordination and balance? All of those things are elements of being able to get to your strongest levels. All of those are elements of being able to run efficiently, to be able to do burpees efficiently, to be able to perform some of those power movements efficiently. Like you have to practice. Those are all skill-based things. And that's why you need to get yourself a barbell, learn the skills, learn how to balance your body, coordinate your body, all of the nervous system stuff, so that you can get stronger and more powerful and build your endurance and your VO2 max and all of those things. So look, if you want to keep this simple and you want clarity, right? If you want to be the strongest version of yourself, do what the strongest people do. Learn how to use a barbell. If you want to be the most powerful, learn what the most powerful people do. They train with a barbell. Learn what the best endurance athletes do, right? For everyday life, you need to be able to cover distance, right? You need to be able to get on the floor and stand back up consistently over time, right? And those things are going to create a tremendous amount of fitness. Now, if you've never programmed this stuff before, meaning programming daily workouts, I think it's a really good idea to get some help, because the person that has developed people over time, those are the people that you want to get around who know how to program these things, right? It's one thing for me just to tell you those, but at the same time, I don't want you just to go out and get a barbell and start squatting if you don't know what you're doing, because there is a risk here if you don't know what you're doing. The risk is almost zero if you do know what you're doing. And that's why it's so important to find someone who is proficient in these movements, who can also not just be proficient, but to teach them to somebody else. And that's where coaching comes in play, okay? Now, let's talk about the third thing, which is sleep. I don't want to get too deep into this one because it's fairly simple. There's two things that we look for when it comes to sleep. Number one is you want to make sure that you're sleeping at least 7 hours a night. Now, there's some variation here depending on the person, right? We can debate whether it's 6.5, right? But for the most part, let's keep it simple. You want to sleep at least 7 hours a night, okay? The second thing you want to do is you want to sleep consistently through the night, meaning you don't want any wake-ups, okay? So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you want to be able to sleep for 7 hours without waking up. For most guys over 40 and even women, one of the things that happens is we have to get up and pee, right? So figure out what's it going to take for you to get that 7 hours and not be able to wake up? Do you need to limit your water intake during the day or maybe stop drinking at 7 o'clock? Sometimes it's that simple, and you can start developing your sleep. And if you can get these three things, your sleep, your fitness, and your nutrition, you can be one of the healthiest people on this planet. And you don't need to be perfect with your nutrition. You don't need to do a bunch of different things for your fitness. You don't need to make sleeping complicated. Just do those things. And over time, your litmus as to whether or not you're getting better or worse is going to be in your performance numbers. How strong you are, how powerful you are, and how fast your body can move in some of those conditioning things. Like, let's just use a mile time as an example. If your mile time is going down, that means you're improving, right? And we want to chase improvement. We want to chase performance literally for a lifetime. We want to keep chipping away and making you a little bit stronger, a little bit more powerful, just give you a little bit more endurance. And we just want to keep just sort of improving those things. And when you have someone that knows what they're doing and knows how to program for you, you can have decades of growth. And that's what you want. So look, don't fall into the trap of all these different supplements and DNA testing and all those things. There may be a time and a place for some of those things, but not until you get your foundations figured out, right? When I stop seeing people progress in performance, maybe we need to talk about taking some creatine. Maybe we need to talk about having a DNA test if your nutrition is really good, but you're not losing weight. Maybe there's something there, right? So Gary Brecka's got some great ideas, but those are advanced level things. And I think most people are attracted to the shiny object, advanced level stuff before building these foundations. So look, don't get lost in the weeds. Keep it fairly simple and get some help so that you can start progressing immediately. So there it is. If you have any topics that you want me to cover, let me know, put them in the comments, and I'll make sure that I cover them in future episodes.